Welcome to MogulCast, where we uncover the stories behind the world's greatest business empires. Let's get into today's story. May 1997. Apple's stock hits a 12-year low. The company is burning $1 billion a year. Cash reserves. Enough for 90 days. The board has one question: who can save us? The answer: the man they fired 12 years earlier. This is the story of how Steve Jobs built a $3 trillion empire after being fired from his own company. And it is worse, and more brilliant, than you think. 1976, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak build the first Apple computer in a garage. By 1980, Apple goes public, valued at $1.8 billion. Jobs is 25, a millionaire, and convinced he's unstoppable. But his management style is chaotic. He clashes with the board, with employees, even with the CEO he hired. By 1985, the board has had enough. They strip him of all operational duties. Jobs quits. Or so he thinks. The board didn't just fire Steve Jobs, they replaced him with John Sculley, the Pepsi executive Jobs himself recruited. Scully's mission: save Apple from Jobs' reckless vision. For a while, it works. Apple's revenue doubles. But Scully's real mistake isn't strategy, it's pride. He ignores the rise of Microsoft, the shift to software, and the one product that could have saved Apple. We will come back to that decision. It is the key to everything. While Apple stumbles, Jobs is building a new empire. He founds Next, a computer company aimed at education and business. The hardware flops, but the software, Next Step, is revolutionary. Meanwhile, he buys a small animation studio from George Lucas. It's called Pixar. In 1995, Pixar's Toy Story becomes the highest-grossing animated film of the year. Jobs is a billionaire again. But Apple? It's dying. By 1996, Apple is a shadow of itself. Market share: below 4%. Stock price: down 70% from its peak. The board fires Scully's successor and brings in Gil Amelio, a turnaround specialist. His first move: acquire Next. The deal is announced in December 1996. Jobs is back, as an advisor. But not everyone is celebrating. The board is divided. The employees are skeptical. And Jobs? He's playing the long game. Jobs' strategy is simple: focus on what Apple does best: beautiful, user-friendly machines. But here's what the media completely got wrong about this. Jobs didn't just want to sell computers. He wanted to control the entire ecosystem. Hardware, software, even the chips inside. It was a radical idea in 1997. Most analysts called it arrogant. They were wrong. It was the foundation of a $3 trillion empire. July 1997. Apple's board meets in secret. Gil Amelio is out. Jobs is in, as interim CEO. His first move: cut the product line from 15 to 4. His second: negotiate a shocking deal with Microsoft. Bill Gates appears on a giant screen at Macworld, announcing a $150 million investment. The crowd boos. Jobs doesn't care. He knows something they don't: Apple needs cash, and Microsoft needs Apple alive to avoid antitrust scrutiny. The iMac launches in 1998. It's colorful, it's all-in-one, and it's a hit. Sales: 800,000 units in 5 months. Apple posts its first profitable quarter in years. But Jobs isn't satisfied. He knows the real battle isn't in desktops, it's in portability. The iPod launches in 2001. It's not the first MP3 player, but it's the first that works seamlessly with iTunes. By 2003, Apple owns 70% of the digital music market. 2005, Apple's stock is soaring, but Jobs is restless. He calls a secret meeting with his top engineers. The mission? Build a phone. Not just any phone, the first phone that doesn't suck. The iPhone launches in 2007. Critics call it overpriced. Steve Ballmer laughs. There's no chance it gets any significant market share. By 2011, the iPhone generates more revenue than all of Microsoft. And if you've made it this far, you already understand something most analysts completely missed. Jobs' obsession wasn't just with products, it was with control. The App Store launches in 2008. By 2015, it's a $25 billion business. Apple doesn't just sell devices, it owns the entire experience. But in 2011, Jobs steps down as CEO. His health is failing. He dies in October 2011. The company he saved is now worth $350 billion. But the real test? Can Apple survive without him? Under Tim Cook, Apple becomes the first $1 trillion company in 2018. Then $2 trillion in 2020. Then $3 trillion in 2022. The iPhone is now a $200 billion a year business. But the real legacy? Apple's ecosystem. Over 1.5 billion active devices. A services business growing at 20% a year. Jobs didn't just save Apple, he turned it into the most valuable company in history. Remember that decision we mentioned at the start? The one Scully made in the 1990s. He ignored the shift to software. Jobs didn't. He built an ecosystem where hardware and software work together seamlessly. That decision didn't just save Apple, it made it unstoppable. And it's the reason your iPhone, iPad, and Mac all work together today. By the numbers, Apple's market cap hit $3 trillion in 2022. The iPhone accounts for over 50% of revenue. Services, like the App Store and Apple Music, bring in over $80 billion a year. The company employs over 165,000 people. And Steve Jobs? He's the only person in history to build two $1 trillion companies, Pixar and Apple. The lesson? Great companies aren't built on products, they're built on ecosystems. Jobs didn't just sell computers or phones. He sold a seamless experience. And that's why, even after his death, Apple continues to dominate. The question is, who's next? Because in business, the only thing harder than building an empire is keeping it. If you want to understand how this pattern repeats across every major business empire, the next video covers a story with disturbing parallels. A company that seemed unstoppable, until it wasn't. That one is next. That's the story for today on MogulCast. If you found this valuable, subscribe and hit the bell, a new empire story drops every single weekday. See you tomorrow.